What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island Podcast, the only NFL podcast where you get your takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, and I'm joined today by two good friends, Ty McGee and Hammer as well in this one. Huge episode for you guys. We're breaking down our top free agents, giving our predictions for where these guys are going to land, as well as some trade targets that have been talked about all week going into this upcoming free agency frenzy, which is going to be a lot of fun. So let's get right into it. Starting off with some quarterbacks that are really, really hot in this quarterback market. We got Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson. So I guess we'll start off with Sam Darnold, probably the most intriguing prospect out of these four, with a guy that is still really young, has had a crazy, crazy career so far, really up and down, and then he landed in Minnesota last season, balled out. So I'll let you start off, Ty. What are your thoughts on Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I think Darnold, he's just he's very young still, right? Only 27 years old, a lot younger than a lot of quarterbacks that are kind of, reaching their peak when you think of Burrow and Allen and Lamar, and even almost a little bit old, just a year older than Tyler Show, a guy who's in the draft who we're talking about possibly as QB3 in the draft. So, I liked what we saw out of Darnold this past year. I liked what we saw out of him in limited reps with the 49ers. I think it shows just how much a quarterback can excel in, better situations with better players, better coaching, better organization. Or you think about his first two stops in the NFL, the Jets with Adam Gase, then he's in Carolina, and both those teams are still kind of in turmoil, picking in the top 10 of the draft, right? And his last two stops are teams that are better in the NFL. So, I think Darnold has showed a lot of promise, and I'm interested to see in his next stop. I have him landing in Vegas with the Raiders, and I think that's kind of the hot spot for him right now. They're a team that needs a quarterback. They have the money. They're not at the top of the draft, right? They brought in Pete Carroll, and that's what I think is a big thing. Pete has always, when you go back to his USC days, right, he's always had a really good quarterback. He's been good with quarterbacks as a coach, not even just the talent, but coaching-wise. When you think about a Carson Palmer, a Matt Leinart, right, guys like that, then you go to Seattle and he has Russell Wilson. Even Matt Flynn had really good games there. So I think it's a quarterback-friendly system. Then you think about the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, right? He has been in high-octane, high-pass offenses, whether it's been at Oregon or at Ohio State where he just won a national championship. I like the idea of Darnold fitting into that offense, fitting into that system with Pete Carroll and Chip. And I think he's got some weapons there, right? He's got Brock and he's got Jacoby Myers. I think they need to do some building up around him, maybe with that pick 7 and some other things in free agency, building up that line a little bit. But I think that makes the most sense for me. I don't think he ends up back in Minnesota because I think they're not going to meet the asking price, and I think it's just time for them to kind of move on, run with J.J. McCarthy and use their cap space other places, because as soon as you sign him, it kind of dries up the well of other places that you can fill in. And, there's a couple other guys on this list that I see in Minnesota possibly. So I think Darnold to Vegas makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, Hammer, do you agree or disagree with Ty's takes there?
I agree. I totally agree. I think you look at all the QB needed teams and it just makes the most sense, like Ty said, where they're picking in the draft and they have the cap space. I think Darnold can be good to, decent to good for 2-3 years and kind of be that filler, and maybe he turns into something, but I think it just makes the most sense. And I got him to the Raiders as well.
Yeah. See, I'm a little bit in opposed to both of you guys in this one, because I think with Sam Darnold, to me, his whole career, right, has been all over the place, leaving teams, going up from place to place. And it feels like for me, Minnesota is kind of a place where he had a good season last year. He can kind of build from it this upcoming season and be a guy that just he obviously, I don't think he is a playoff success like quarterback. I don't think he's that kind of guy. I don't really see the Vikings making the Super Bowl or anything with him, but I think he just is somewhere you can build off of and still train JJ McCarthy like for a 2-year deal. Maybe I think that's what they would give him, probably Sam Darnold 2 years. You guys think he's going to get paid a shit ton. And I understand why, obviously, with what he did with Minnesota, but I think he kind of is a 2-year, $30 million quarterback right now. And I think that's where his market should be. And if it's not, if he's asking for 40 mil, I think you should take a pay cut to stay there as well, just for the higher chance of success. You're throwing to the best receiver in the league with Justin Jefferson versus Las Vegas. You have Brock Bowers, like not hating on him at all, but it's a lot different of a situation. Huge regime change over the past preseason or offseason. So it's a lot of change for him. And over this past weekend here, let me see if I can pull this up. Or over this past week, we've discussed this whole time is kind of like the quarterback salaries, right? Is 40 million fair? Is it not fair? Things like that. And so I just want to add something real quick. I'm going to share my screen real quick with these quarterback salaries. Let's see if I can pull it up. So here we could see the quarterback average passing touchdowns. And I know like rushing touchdowns, total touchdowns, things like that come into play. This is with 10 plus games started per year, any season I included in it. So everyone in here had 10 plus games started, and Patrick Mahomes, we kind of see at the top over here with almost like 35 touchdowns averaged, and he has a salary of 45 million. Dak Prescott kind of 60 million a year, 28 passing touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, a little bit of an outlier, right? 17 touchdowns average every single season with $55 million. They feel like he's the answer. I get it. Baker Mayfield, 33 million, 24 touchdowns. Now, Sam Darnold averaged 18 touchdowns in his seasons where he started for 10 plus games, which obviously puts him in this lower range. And so I'm interested to see what you guys think salary wise. What do you guys think he should be making in the upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about the Raiders, right, if he goes back to Minnesota, like you said, it's probably a 2-year deal, something short, but I think he can get on the market, and what's going to separate Minnesota versus other teams, I think he could get a 4-year deal looking at $35 to $40 million. I think you got to factor in a few things, right? Obviously, the salary cap jump just happened, and when you look at him, I think you got to really compare him to a guy like Baker, right? Obviously, Baker almost making 35, and he got that salary, he got that contract a couple of years ago before, obviously, the bump. The average passing touchdowns for the both of them is kind of a skewed stat because of the shaky periods of time that they had in their career, right? It's, Darnold starting off with the Jets, and Baker had some success with Cleveland, but then he ends up kind of bouncing around. So it's tough. And I think, even looking at Lawrence, right, he makes a ton of money and he gets hurt last year. So I think Darnold, like, he fits in probably, kind of in that Derek Carr to Matt Stafford kind of range, like maxing out at Stafford, right here. Probably minimum around Derek Carr because of that salary cap bump that we saw this year. And I mean, you look at his best season, right, and his only full season with a good organization, a good team, 35 touchdowns this past year, right? Top 5 in a lot of offensive stats. It's tough to look past the Jets years, but if you really start to think about, okay, what were the circumstances that he was in? What did he have around him, right? If you just take those apart, look at what he did in San Francisco in limited time, look at what he did in Minnesota this past year, you can start to reason that he's a $35 to $40 million guy because the quarterback position is the most important position in the NFL. You're desperate for a quarterback. Like I said, the Raiders, they're not in a position to draft a quarterback at 7. Not at least one of the top 2 guys. It would be considered a reach. So paying Darnold this kind of money in that 35 to 40 range, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't mind the take at all. I think right now, like, teams are pretty desperate. Like, and if they miss out on free agency and then the draft position they have, it's gonna be tough. So they're definitely gonna try pretty hard to get a QB. Hammer, what do you think on pay range for him?
Yeah, I said it earlier in the week, when we were talking. I think he's going to get 40 mil. I think it's going to be with the Raiders. They're desperate. They need a quarterback. I think, like, who else are they going to sign? Russell Wilson? I don't think so. It's really just Darnold. He's going to get 40 mil. Yeah, you guys said it all.
I think Ty did a really great job of kind of analyzing it all. I still think personally, like, Sam Darnold's career history, things like that should get him closer to the 30 mil range, but it's fair with the given salary cap and everything like that. Moving on to the next quarterback, we got Aaron Rodgers, Hammers.
Oh God, I have to do this one.
Yeah, Hammer, I'm going to let you break this one down as the podcast Packers fan. So what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers leaving the Jets, things like that? Not even leaving the Jets, getting kicked out from New York. Where do you think he lands?
I'll be a little quick here. I'm going to say, I think he's going to go to the Giants. I don't know why. I think this guy's a nut. He loves football and wants to continue playing. I get it. Giants seem like the only team interested in him. It's probably going to be a 1-year deal. 1 year, I don't even know. What would you say? 1 year, 45? Something like that.
I think that's
I'd
hot.
probably say.
I think that's a little hot.
Yeah, but it's Aaron Rodgers.
Think about what he was making this past year. He's making around 35 to 40, right? He probably gets around that again. I don't think, again, the salary bump is a little bit different with an older guy like that. He probably does end up at the 35.
You think so? A little lower?
Yeah.
I think so. Well, I think he might demand a little bit more because I don't know if he's going to come with baggage this time. And we'll get to that a little later, if you know what I mean. I don't think someone's going to come with him. But, I think he's going to go to the Giants. I don't understand why, and I don't really want to watch it. I think it's going to be ugly because he's not going to have anyone to throw to really except for neighbors, and he's going to get beat up in that division too. But, yeah, I'm going to go into the Giants.
Ty, what are your thoughts? Any arguments or –
Yeah, no, I know where Hammer's going with his buddy too. Later on, we'll probably talk about Davante, but I'll kind of jump the gun. I think, when you look around the landscape of teams that could take Aaron, and if he wants Davante to come with him, the Giants make the most sense, right? They do have a head coach that won Coach of the Year. They have Malik Neighbors, who's an absolute stud, right? There are some Tyrone Tracy, right? They have some weapons on offense, and that Andrew Thomas, right? He'll have some protection. I think when you look around the landscape, right, it's again, the Giants are another team that are desperate for a quarterback, not in a position to take a quarterback. The only other team that I would think for him would really be the Titans. I don't think the Steelers are really going to be in the race for him, just based on, the kind of the buzz around everything right now. So you think maybe the Titans, but I think the Titans go quarterback at 1. I think they take Cam Ward, so kind of takes them out of – I don't think they're in the race for him at all. I think it's a Giants one-man race for him. I think they probably go with Rodgers, maybe take a guy like Dart if he's in there in the second round, or Milroe or Leonard or Will Howard, whoever's there in the second round, right? Whoever they have at the top of their board. I think they probably take Rodgers, as a 1 or 2 year deal, just hoping that he can kind of mentor some guy that they take in the second round and hope that Davante will tag along with him, because Davante and Malik Neighbors would be a dirty combo for him, kind of similar to the way that they had Garrett and Davante in the other side of New York. So I also think that he ends up with the Giants. I just simply think it's because, when you look at the landscape, who needs a quarterback who's not in a position to take one of the top 2 guys right now, and who has the money to do so?
Yeah, no, I think New York is definitely the other New York team is definitely the way he goes. I think Aaron Rodgers playing his way out, playing the end of his career, it's going to be an ugly season. I think the Giants are the only team that are going to go after him, which I guess makes sense, right? You think that Shadur and Cam Ward are going to be gone by the time they're picking, most likely. It just makes sense for them to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers for a year, bridge them to next season where there's going to be some more quarterback prospects in the draft, and not having to reach or trade up for a top 2 guy in this year's draft class. Moving on from Rodgers, we got Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, both free agents for the Steelers. So before we get into breaking them down, I want to ask, which player do you guys think the Steelers would rather keep, and which do you think they let go, in your opinion? Ty, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, I know the building is really split on the 2 of these, and part of me, I don't know, it's a tough decision. I do think they end up sticking with Russell Wilson, right? Because that is the guy they went with in the latter half of the season, even though they saw the success that Justin Fields had. I know that Russell didn't have a great end to the season, but they still, were competing at the end of the season, made the playoffs. They went on a run with him for a little bit there. I think they probably just try to build around him and draft another quarterback. In my latest mock draft, I had them taking Dart at 21. So, I think they probably take a guy like that early, just take Russ on another 1-year deal, maybe try to go after another receiver this offseason to kind of help him out in this 1 year, unless he gets beat out by Dart.
Yeah.
It's just, when you think between the 2 of them, Fields and Russ, I think, could take a 1-year deal and just be that kind of, bridge quarterback. I think Fields, he'll have offers elsewhere to at least take a 2-year deal to kind of be, bridge, but not a bridge to a guy that they took in the first round, right? I think Russ is the obvious bridge for a guy like Jackson Dart at 21, where Fields maybe gives them a little bit more competition. So, and obviously that's what you want, but the politics in the NFL, they're not going to always, if you plan on taking down the first round, you don't necessarily want a guy who's going to outright beat him and then make that first round pick look like a bad pick. So it's just the politics of the NFL. I think they end up sticking with Russ. They believed in him in the offseason. They believed in him midway through the season. So I think they run it back with him.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I'm not gonna add anything to that. I think Russ stays with the Steelers, and then so I think we'll talk about Justin Fields moving on. Hammer, do you think Russell Wilson stays with Steelers? I think they let him go.
I don't. I think it's gonna be Fields. I think Fields is gonna be the one in Pittsburgh. I think they go with the younger option, the guy that's got more potential. And then I think he gets a 2-year deal. And then I think if you have Fields really quick, I think, you look at the other options after the Raiders, the Giants, maybe the Colts, maybe the Titans. At all those teams, I think I want a two-year shot with the Steelers organization and Mike Tomlin. I think that gives me the best chance to succeed. So I'm going to go Fields stays in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't mind that take at all. So for me, I think with Russell Wilson staying with the Steelers, I think Fields has to look in kind of all other directions and figure out a place for him. And I think a spot that could end up being appealing with all these other teams landing on quarterbacks already could be the Jets, possibly a team that, a quarterback that could run and throw would be a really good advantage in their offense with the scheme that they have. And I think it would benefit Garrett Wilson as well. And I don't really have too much to add to that. I think Justin Fields is kind of like it would be all over the place. If Russell Wilson gets kept, Justin Fields could land anywhere. He could even go to a team like you said, he could go to the Titans. He could go anywhere really and just kind of see where he lands and potential wise, because no one really knows what he could do as a quarterback. Anyways, moving on from quarterbacks, we're going to start going through some other positions. We got receivers next. I'm going to go with Davante Adams first. We mentioned Aaron Rodgers and his baggage earlier in this episode. Aaron Rodgers, Davante, seemingly done. Doesn't look like they're going to play anywhere else together, at least as of now. So I want to ask you guys, Hammer, you first with Davante Adams being a former Packer. What are your thoughts on him? Where does he end up?
Yeah, I'm not going where you think I'm going. I think he's going to go. I don't think he's going back with Rodgers. I don't think he's doing a reunion with Green Bay. I think he's going to go out west. He's going to sign a 2-3-year deal to go end his career. He's got family out west. I think he wants to be in the warm weather. I think he's going to end up with the Rams. I think he's going to end up with the Rams with Stafford and Puka and McVay and do some flashy things in LA.
Ty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like he's a shoe-in just to follow Rodgers, right? I think for me, it was kind of between there and the Chargers, because I think the Chargers are a wide receiver needy team, and he would make sense for them on the outside. And they obviously, as you can see here, have a ton of cap space. But when you think, 14 there for the Giants, right, $48 million, I think that can fit them in for Davante and for an Aaron Rodgers. I think, they're a team that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are very desperate to win some football games. I think they'll throw some money at the two of them, maybe take a guy like Travis Hunter at pick 3 there, really have a high-octane, high-pass offense with Hunter and Neighbors and Davante Adams, also Hunter playing defense. So, I think they're a team that needs to win because both those guys are on the hot seat after, seeing Saquon let go and the mistakes they let with Danny Dimes. I just think Davante ends up following Aaron to New York, the other side of New York, and they both keep their apartments or their houses in New York. And not much of
Jersey.
Yeah, excuse me. It's all
sorry, Ham. Sorry, Jersey man over there. Anyways, yeah. I mean, I see where you're going with that. I think the reunion would definitely make a lot of sense. Now, I kind of have him going a different direction. Similar to you, Hammer, I got him going to LA. I think it's either LA team. I think he kind of wants to be in the West Coast. But like we can see here in the salary caps, I mean, Chargers are second in salary cap. The Rams are ninth. And I think both of them can afford a guy like Davante Adams for a couple of years, a year, maybe 2. And I think that'll be the best fit for him, as well as at receiver. I think kind of coaching up a younger star receiver is kind of the way to go for him. I could also see him maybe going to Green Bay, with the Green Bay needing a receiver 1 like a bona fide receiver one for a couple of years before they can find their own. And then I think also a possibility would just be, this is like the crazy thing that like is very, very unlikely, but if he really wants to reunite with Carr, if he wants to, I mean, that's
next guy. It's not
like, I'm not even like, okay, I'm not trolling. Like, I'm not like a lot of the Saints.
Once, Jenks. We tried that once.
A lot of Saints people are talking about
Who's the next receiver?
See if it's possible.
Shit. What Saints guys?
What do you gotta get under the cap first?
Listen, let's go. Listen. A lot of people are saying the only way that the Saints can get Carr to take a pay cut, and this is the only reason why I'm really bringing this up, is because Derek Carr's contract, right, is shit for the Saints. It's terrible. You can't really restructure it. You can't really extend them. You don't want to do that. So the only real opportunity is to possibly take a pay cut. And the only way that a lot of people, Saints reporters, are saying is possible for him to take a pay cut would be, oh, we'll give you a Davante Adams a little treat. And then he takes a pay cut. Davante Adams comes in over. Very unlikely, not happening. But
they also need like 6 other guys to take a pay cut at the top of the
They figure it out. They figure it out one way or another. Not saying it's good for the team. It's honestly terrible. Before this episode, we were talking about what we want for free agency. And the one thing I said is that I want to get out of free agency hell. Or salary cap hell to even worry about free agency, because I can't even want a free agent. Anyways, moving on. The next receiver we got is Chris Godwin, a really talented receiver that's been kind of injured the last few years. It's really hurt him the last couple of seasons, which I mean sucks for his career. But 29-year-old out of Tampa Bay, young, not too old, not too young, kind of in that middle range for a receiver. Coming out of Tampa Bay, what do you guys think he does? Ty, you can go first.
Yeah, I think the most sensible thing for me would just be a reunion with Liam Cohen in Jacksonville, right? They just cleared up a lot of cap space. They could use a veteran option next to Brian Thomas Jr. with cutting Christian Kirk. I think they, just makes a lot of sense. They can give him the payday. They don't really have to worry about the ankle injury. Liam Cohen was in that building, so he really knows, how that process was going with the recovery. So I think they're willing to pay him more than everyone else, and he ends up back with his OC. And gives Trevor Lawrence another option next to BTJ.
I don't mind it. Hammer, what do you think?
I like it, Ty. I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think they can give him the payday, and I think if you're Chris Godwin, you could finally be that number one guy. He's always been second fiddle to Mike Evans, so you go to New England, get the payday, get to be the guy for a couple of years, help out young QB Drake May.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think he re-signs with Tampa Bay. I think they'll figure out a way to clear up some space, get him re-signed for a couple of years, possibly maybe a 2 to 3 year deal, and kind of figure it out from there. But I think he's very, very valuable to Baker Mayfield's success. With Mike Evans being a little bit older, maybe his injury history, things like that, he gets a little bit more banged up next season. Chris Godwin can still be that guy for you guys in Tampa Bay. Moving on from receiver to the last few offensive players we want to talk about. Ronnie Stanley, the offensive tackle from Baltimore. Really, really great prospect for this free agency class. A lot of teams that need some help on the O-line. Hammer, what do you think Ronnie Stanley ends up?
Yeah, Ty's not going to like this one. I got him going to the Chiefs. Chiefs just traded their best offensive lineman, Tooney, and, it's just such a Chiefs thing. Yeah, we traded him, but we're going to come in and pick up the best guy in a free agency to protect Mahomes after watching that Super Bowl. So I got him going to the Chiefs.
Okay, I don't mind it. Ty, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you'll notice we don't see the Chiefs on this board with cap space at all. They're probably close to the bottom at a negative spot. So I got them going all the way to the top at New England. I think Vrabel's going to really focus on the trenches. Kind of talked about it on Twitter today. I could see them going heavy in the draft and in free agency on the trenches. I see them giving Ronnie Stanley a big payday and protecting the blind side of Drake May for the next couple of years.
Yeah, Ty, 100% agree with you. You nailed it on the head. I'm going to go with the Patriots as well for Ronnie Stanley. The next offensive lineman we're going to talk about is Drew Dalman from Atlanta. Probably easily the best center in this class of free agency. Was a probably top 5 center in the past season as well. A guy that a lot of people, he's kind of going under the radar. I feel like a lot of people aren't expecting him to be a big money kind of guy in this free agency class, but I think he will be. Hammer, where do you think he ends up?
I got him going to Chicago. I don't think they're done rebuilding that offensive line, and they get the missing piece. And, I think they give him a good payday, and that really opens things up for them at number 10. They can really take best player. They don't have to focus on offensive line anymore. So I'm going to the Bears, where he's going to get bullied by Kenny Clark 2 times a year.
Okay, Packers fan. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the same thing, right? I think that things didn't work out with Shelton for them this past year. They really focus on that interior offensive line. You think about Ben Johnson with Detroit. They were big on the O-line, really focused on building that up through the draft and free agency. So I think he goes back to the well here in Chicago and gets him one more interior piece to really help out that run game with DeAndre Swift and a possible Ashton Genty as well.
Yeah, again, nailed right on the head. I'm going to go with Chicago as well. I just think Ben Johnson needs a good O-line. What's not another piece? Look at it on the salary cap as well. They're not too low. They're at 16th. They still got some room. I think they'll be able to fit him right in to that O-line perfectly. We got running backs. Quickly, I got Najee Harris and Aaron Jones. Najee Harris, a guy that has been healthy, hasn't missed a game in his career, knock on wood, has rushed for 1,000 yards every single season as well. Ty, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I think Najee. I think I'm gonna talk pair and pair here. I think Aaron Jones ends up in Denver as a receiving back for Sean Payton. I think they kind of need that guy out of the backfield who could be that twofold weapon for them, right? Both in the run game and the pass game. And then I think Najee ends up replacing him in Minnesota. If they're gonna roll with JJ McCarthy and they're gonna have a young quarterback, they need a strong run game. So I see them probably taking a running back either in the first or the second and giving Najee maybe a 2-3 year deal. This is a guy who's been top 5 in rushing yards over the past couple of years. So, he's an underrated back. I think he's just had a tough time in Pittsburgh, and I think he really gets a stride here in Minnesota. They have a lot of money too. So I see Aaron Jones in Denver, and I see Najee Harris filling his spot in Minnesota.
Okay, don't mind it. Hammer, what do you think?
Nice. I got Aaron Jones landing in Denver too. Let's get him out of that Vikings jersey. I think, Sean Payton had some juice to that backfield. And then for Najee Harris, I'm going to the Chargers. They get that replacement for J.K. Dobbins, a little power back. Yeah. What do you got, Jenks?
Hammer, I got the same as you, but I got the Chargers. Hear me out. J.K. Dobbins, right? We saw the role that they were intending for him this season. He got banged up, obviously. And if you put Najee Harris in a role like that, I think he'd be really successful. Hasn't missed a game in his career. If you can rely on a running back that can stay healthy, things like that, I think Najee Harris is the perfect role there. And like you said, Ty, Sean Payton, I'm very familiar with his game, and he loves a good running back that can do absolutely whatever you need him to in the pass game or the run game. I think Aaron Jones is a good fit as a veteran for coaching up some of the younger guys that the Broncos have at running back as well. The new addition to this list today is Evan Engram from Jacksonville. They cut him last second. Kind of didn't really expect that at all. I guess they didn't like his salary. Thought he was a little bit high paid, but they have a lot of salary cap this year. I just didn't really expect him to move on from him. I think he's a solid receiving back. He is a little bit older at age 30. Hammer, what are your thoughts on him? Where do you think he ends up?
I got him going to the Saints, baby. The Saints always pick up some weird guy every year with no cap space. Evan Engram, really athletic guy, little old, injury prone. I think he's got Saint written all over him.
Okay, I'll just address it real quick because I'm the Saints fan here. I don't see that happening at all. I don't mind it. I don't mind it, Hammer. I don't like. I think it. I
don't have any reason. I just have a feel.
It's the Hammer.
Like it's gonna be like it's gonna be like a week after Monday. It's gonna be like a week into free agency. It's gonna pop up Monday after the notification. It's gonna be like what? Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I just think
that guy in fantasy. All right, let's go.
Okay, yeah, I don't mind it. I don't see the Saints getting a tight end in free agency this year. I think they go in the draft. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a few teams I could think, right? Since he could use a tight end, the Rams probably use an athletic tight end like him, similar to what they had with Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee in the past. But really, I think it kind of boils down to two teams for me, both with a rookie quarterback, either Washington or Denver. And I think it kind of does depend on what they do with Zach Ertz and Juwan Johnson. I think Denver probably ends up going with Juwan Johnson. And I think Washington ends up with Evan Engram, a younger, more athletic tight end for Jaden Daniels. I think maybe they bring Zach Ertz back, but he is a little bit older. He showed he had a little bit of juice, but I think, they need a little bit more speed going out there. That's why they brought in, Debo he's a good yak guy. So I think, Washington's probably his most likely landing spot.
I don't mind it at all. I got him going to Indianapolis. I think the Colts are gonna want a tight end. Obviously, they could go Tyler Warren early in the draft, but I think this is a guy that, with him opening up on the free agency market, you can pay him not a high number. Probably, what would you say a tight end value would be? Probably like $9 million, something like that.
He could get 10.
10, 9, 10. It's kind of the range I think they would pay him. And then maybe you draft Tyler Warren still, and then you have two tight ends that you can really, really depend upon. And Tyler Warren being a do-it-all kind of guy, and then Evan Engram, the receiving tight end for you in Indianapolis. Moving on from the offensive side, we go to the defensive side. Here we got Milton Williams from Philadelphia, a defensive tackle that had his best season this past year, looking to make a big amount of money in this free agency class. He's an interesting prospect, but I want to hear, Ty, what you think about him for this free agency class.
Yeah, I think New England goes back to the well here and goes back to the trenches, right? They get Ronnie Stanley on one side. I think they get Milton Williams on the other side. Obviously, a really good pass rush guy. Needs a little bit of improvement in the run game, but he wasn't terrible. Big fella. I think Vrabel loves the trenches, and they're going to be able to offer him the most amount of money. So I think New England is the most obvious landing spot for him.
Hammer, what do you think?
Yeah, I got New England too for the same reasons.
Yep, 3 in a row. I think New England is a perfect fit, mainly because I think they go defensive tackle here and in the draft with Abdul Carter. So I think it would be a perfect fit, a little bit of a free agency to trend connection there for them. Next, we got Josh Sweat, the defensive end from Philadelphia, coming into this. Hammer, where you got him ending up?
Yeah, I got him going to Arizona, a team that's high on this list with a lot of money, a team that struggled with pass rush for many years. Makes too much sense. I think, for two of these Eagles guys, I think you can argue they're both young guys. They got their rings. Let's go get paid. I don't really care about what team we're playing for. Let's just go get paid.
Yeah. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right with you on Arizona because of the pass rush, because of the money, but also the head coach position there, right? Jonathan Gannon coached Josh Sweat for a couple of years, right? He's been in Philly his entire career. Gannon was with him there. You saw when Gannon came over, he brought a guy like Kaiser White. I think it's an obvious connection here. Sweat gets his payday, like Hammer was saying, but he also goes back into a system that he's very familiar with and can continue to have a lot of success in.
Yeah, no, I got him going to Arizona as well. Jonathan Gannon, that was my big note, is head coaching links. He also did say in an interview, he did say that he doesn't really care too much about money. He does care about a placement as well, but I think he still get a good amount of money from Arizona. So I think it'll be a little bit of both perfectly for him, for the Cardinals. Moving on from him, we're going to go to Joey Bosa, the last defensive lineman. We're going to talk, or we got two more. We got Joey Bosa and then Khalil Mack after that. Joey Bosa cut free surprisingly from the Chargers, mainly because I think of injury concerns for him. He's been healthy, I believe.
His cap too is crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you tie it, he's being paid the certain amount based off of production. He's only had like 10 games played over the last 3 seasons or something like that. He hasn't played a healthy few seasons at all. So I think that's a big reason. Ty, what do you think about him? Where do you think he ends up?
Yeah, I think he's going to take a pay cut and he's going to go play with his brother. I think, the opportunity to play with your brother and bookend on the other side, they're a very dangerous duo. They're a team that's in need of pass rush, right? Just cut Javon Hargrave. So, obviously he's an interior guy, but they need pass rush desperately. They're a team that, historically has had a really good pass rush. They get Robert Saleh back. I think he's a really good fit in that system. I think he probably takes a pay cut because there's another guy on this list that I think ends up in San Fran too. And obviously we don't really see them on this list, right? They're in need of some cap space. So I think he's willing to take that cut, go play with his brother and wreak some havoc and have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the brother dynamic would be perfect for him and Nick in the 49ers uniforms. Hammer, what do you think?
3 for 3.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's the right take for him. Next, we got Khalil Mack, an older guy in this class, 34 years old. I think that kind of hurts his money stock, that I don't think he's going to get a really high paid salary this year. Hammer, what do you think he ends up?
I think he's going to get paid a good amount. I think he's going to get 20 a year, probably 18, 20 a year. He's a big time player. So go put on the film, go look at the production he does in the pass game and the rush game. I think he's going to end up back with the Chargers with them releasing Bosa. And yeah.
Ty, what do you think?
I want him. by the way.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a heavy payday too, right? The production's still there, especially as a pass rusher. He's an absolute physical freak. Hammer, you're going to love this. I have him going to Green Bay. I think they need a pass rusher. They miss out on Josh Sweat. They miss out on some of these other guys. I think Khalil Mack ends up in Green Bay, and him and Rashawn Gary are two just big dudes that are going to be rushing the passer and causing havoc for Green Bay.
I don't mind it. I got him going to Washington. I think Washington has a lot of ties to these older vet kind of guys that can still make their presence felt in and I think Washington, right? We look at the salary cap. If he does end up getting higher paid salary, that's still the salary cap range that they're going to be able to fit in. And I think I think Quinn really loves the older veteran kind of guys that he can depend upon. And for that reason, I think Khalil Mack would be a perfect fit for them in Washington. Next, moving on to the secondary, we got DJ Reed, a shorter cornerback, only 5'9", 5'9" DBs represent from New York, the Jets. Where do you guys think he ends up? Ty, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I have him swapping spots with Charvarius Ward. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but I think DJ Reed makes a lot of sense to go to San Francisco. The connection there with Robert Saleh, obviously his head coach, defensive coordinator the past couple of years in New York. I think he ends up back there. And I have Charvarius Ward kind of backfilling him in Minnesota. I think Minnesota, they have some money to spend. They're desperate for corners, but I don't think they're too desperate where they're going to need to overpay. They have a really good system. I think they can pay Ward, a decent salary. I think Ward's looking for a change. He had a tough past year personally. And I just think, the swap there makes a lot of sense for excuse me. I meant Byron Murphy, but whatever. I think he replaces. Charvarius Ward ends up with Minnesota as well.
Okay, Hammer, what do you think?
I have the same thing. Okay. Both of them. I got Reed going to San Fran. I got Shadarius going into Minnesota.
Okay, I don't mind it. I got DJ Reed going to Detroit to pair with Terrion Arnold. I think he would be a really good matchup there. I don't mind it at all. I know Hammer's shaking his head. I don't really understand why, but I think it might be just because of the Lions, rivals, whatever, a little bit of salty. But I think DJ would be a good pairing in Detroit for them. You guys already mentioned Minnesota. I'm going to say real quick, I think Byron Murphy re-signs in Minnesota. I think they'll just bring him right back. They have their salary cap to do so. So that's my answer for Minnesota there. Where do you guys think Byron Murphy ends up?
Yeah, I would say I jumped the gun here. I think they kind of are all doing a swap in where we said guys are going. I got Byron Murphy going to the Lions over DJ Reed to fill a spot there. I think they need a cornerback. I think, another short corner that could fill a need in Detroit. So I got Byron going there.
Henry, what do you think?
Yeah, Byron and DJ Reed are probably head-to-head, the two top corners in this free agency class, both on the younger side. And Byron Murphy coming off a really good productive year with 6 picks, Pro Bowler. I think he's going to get a big payday from Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind that take at all. I think it's going to be basically like a musical chairs, right? We'll kind of see where everyone ends up if they re-sign or if they all just switch the teams. Like we said, it's going to be that group of teams that all needs a cornerback, just kind of swapping them around. I got Charvarius Ward going to the Raiders or the Vikings. I think those are the two teams that would make the most sense. I think Pete Carroll is really going to try to get that defense turned around. They're not I don't know what their rankings were last year. I really didn't pay attention too much to the Raiders. Obviously, they weren't really. I wasn't missing out by doing so, but I think that defense can be pretty solid. I think he would be a good piece to add with the salary cap that they have. Finally, the last defensive free agent we're going to talk about is Javon Holland, safety from Miami, an interesting younger prospect at 25 years old. Hammer, what do you got him ending up?
Yeah, this is a weird one for me. I think this team's going to overpay for him and just because they didn't come away with anything early on in free agency and they got to make a move. I'm going with Carolina. I think the Panthers just kind of, you know what I mean? I think they overpay for a good safety. I know he had coming off a really good year, but, I don't know where he really ranks with some of the top guys. I think they overpay for him, and that's like their big free agency signing.
I don't mind it. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, I would love to see him in Denver, right? And I think that 18 spot is kind of a deceiving cap space spot because the next 2 years, Denver has almost $100 million, so they could backload a lot of these contracts and compete, with some of the teams that have a lot more cap space. But at the end of the day, I actually think he ends up with the Jets. I think Aaron Glenn, he's going to get in there. He's going to want to build up this defense, especially that secondary around Sauce Gardner. They lose DJ Reed in this scenario. I think they add a safety in Javon Holland, a young guy who really helps give them a solid piece in the center field of that defense. They're at 19 here. They have a little bit of money. I don't think they're going to, really pick up a quarterback. I have them picking up Fields. So I think they pay Fields a little bit less money, probably draft a quarterback, and then can really focus on continuing improving that defense, bringing them back to what Robert Saleh had them at before he left the team.
Yeah, no notes to add. I got him going to the Jets as well, Ty. I think that's a good spot for him. And I think the Aaron Glenn defense, I think obviously he's really going to depend on his defensive backs in that defense, and adding a really good player in Javon Holland is perfect, a perfect start for him. Moving on from free agency to draft or to trade prospects now, get into a little bit of fun here. We got DK Metcalf, right? The Seahawks we see news that they dropped Tyler Lockett out of nowhere, and then DK Metcalf asked for a trade. It's kind of a whirlwind of news for that Seattle receiver room. I think JSN put out a tweet he kind of reacting to the news, like what the hell just happened. So DK Metcalf, only 27 years old, a do-it-all guy at 6'4", 235. You can ask him to do whatever you possibly could need as from a receiver. Ty, what do you think about him? Where does he end up?
Yeah, I think, Green Bay went safety and running back last year, and I think they go back to the well and make two more splashes and try to propel themselves as one of the better teams in the NFC. I think they get Khalil Mack and then add on DK Metcalf. I think eventually, like Hammer has said a lot, right, that asking price comes down. I don't think anyone's going to be willing to give up a first and a third and then pay a guy because he's a free agent next year and he's going to be wanting top dollar. I think they probably end up getting him for a second. And I think he ends up in Green Bay. Josh Jacobs gets that wide receiver one like he was begging for, that maybe they send a second and Romeo Doubs or a guy like that. But I do think he ends up in Green Bay. They get a physical wide receiver one that they haven't had since Davante Adams.
I don't mind it, Hammer. Would you be happy with DK Metcalf on the Packers?
Hell yeah, I'd be happy. DK's a dude, man. He's awesome. 27 years old, so he kind of fits the timeline of the team. He fits the timeline of Jordan Love. We need that number one guy, and DK can be that. That price definitely has to come down. They're asking for the same kind of deal that sent A.J. Brown to Philly, but A.J. Brown back then was 25 years old. DK's 27, and they're just not really the same player. I think the tough thing for me is, that asking price has to come down. I think it will be. So let's say it's a second round pick in Romeo, like Ty was saying, and then you got to pay him $30 million on top of that. I would do it. I don't know if Gutekunst would do it. I haven't seen him do it, so I gotta see it to believe it. So I hope Chargers. I hope though, but I'm being realistic.
Yeah. So you got him going to LA. Okay. I don't mind it. I think that's definitely a possible spot for him. I got him going. And real quick, guys, Hammer knows Gutekunst. He has a selfie with him wrapped around his arm. He knows what Gutekunst is going to do at all times. So they're basically best. Yeah, they're basically best friends. So Hammer and him, real
pull
close.
It up. Keep talking.
Yeah, Hammer, you pull it up. But anyways, I think DK goes to New England. I think that would be their really big splash trade, and on top of the free agency of shoring up the defensive and offensive lines, getting that move in there would truly, you give Drake May a number one guy.
Yeah.
There you go. There's Hammer with Gutekunst.
There's a dynamic duo. I don't know if I could show the live photo, but Jenks was there. He was coming in hot. I was like, dude, can we get a picture? And he put his arm around me. Let's see if I could do it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't do it justice. I don't know.
Yeah, for everyone, aggressive, I don't think we told the story ever, but
Hammer and I aggressive for DK.
Hammer and I went to Green Bay for training camp, and we were on the field for one of the practices, and Gutekunst is walking by. I'm like, Hammer, that's him, bro. And Hammer starts freaking out on the inside, and he's like, yo, Goot, can I get a selfie? And then he just yeah, bud, whatever, man. And he just puts his arm around him.
Bud, whatever.
He said, yeah, man.
Say that. He said this. He said, no, he said, yes, stud, come here. That's what he said.
Okay, I don't know if that's any better, but anyways, it was a cool moment. But I think DK Metcalf goes to New England. Another team that could really make sense is Las Vegas here. I think they get their receiver.
Receiver.
It's interesting that you got DK going to New England, because a guy that we probably won't talk about, but I have going to New England, is Ayuk. I think they've been hot on Ayuk for a minute. I think San Fran's willing to part with him because they need some more cap space to get some other guys on the team. I think Ayuk actually makes more sense for them in New England.
I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, I think they'll have to give up less than they would for DK too. So
the 49ers are trying to get rid of him.
I can see the Patriots, but I don't know. For me, I think DK's Chargers and Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't mind the take. I think Green Bay would be a great spot. I think all these teams are great spots.
He also said he wants to go to contender, and I know you can't really force your way like you can in the NBA.
Yeah,
but I factor that in too.
Yeah, you can't be like Jimmy Butler and get yourself suspended and still end up exactly where you want to end up. So it's a tough thing in the NFL. It's a tougher business. Next, we got Cooper Kupp, a guy that has been talked about in the trade market a lot. And to me, this is honestly like he could end up absolutely anywhere, because I don't know what teams are going to really want to trade for him. I don't know if the Rams are going to want what they're going to be asking for him. The package could be a little bit higher than a lot of teams want. He's 31 years old, hasn't had the production that you want out of him since his really big breakout season. And that's kind of due to injuries, things like that. So it's gonna be a tougher thing for teams to look at, but I think he might end up, honestly, it's a possibility that he ends up just staying in Los Angeles. They've talked about it. I don't think it necessarily, with Matt Stafford coming back, I think that possibility opened up a little bit more, but I think obviously depends on what they do in free agency as well. If they get Davante Adams, then probably not. But Hammer, what do you think? Where do you think he ends up?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I don't know. After the report today that Tutu signs back for $10 million, I don't know.
It was a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. So, Ty did me right, so I'm going to do him right. I got him going to Denver. He's going to play slot for Bo Nix over there in Denver and make Bo Nix's job even easier.
Yeah, and I don't mind it. Ty, would you be excited for Cooper Kupp coming over to Denver?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd be ecstatic. I think he'd be a great slot receiver with Court on the outside and maybe, put Franklin on the outside or Devon Vele. It's tough for me because I don't actually think in the trade market that Denver will do it. I think if it ends up being a trade, I think it'll be Buffalo. But I was just listening to Ian Rappaport earlier. It seems like he might end up in a release soon this week. Les Snead said probably the least likely option is that he ends up back in LA. I think he probably ends up getting released. And then if he's on the open market, there's three teams that I have in mind, right? Denver, obviously, I think would be a great fit for him. They have the money. They have the need at a slot. The Chargers, they don't have the need at a slot, but I think you're willing to pay for a guy like that if they miss out on a lot of the other receivers. He's obviously a stud. Him and Ladd would be great together. It's just you got to figure out where you put them at the X, the Y, or Z, wherever you put them on the field. And then another one that my real prediction is I think if he's a free agent, I think he ends up in Dallas. I think you could put CD on the outside. You could put Cooper Kupp on the slot. They have a little bit of money. They have a real need for a wide receiver too. You saw what they were able to do when they had Amari Cooper and CD Lamb. I think Dak needs desperately a weapon like Cooper Kupp. So I think if he ends up being a free agent, it's Cooper Kupp. I think if it's a trade, I think he ends up in Buffalo. We saw they were willing to make a big swing for Amari Cooper. I think they do it again for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I don't mind it. So, see, to me, like if he gets released, I think Denver makes the most sense. I think they can afford to pay for him. I don't think he would be paid too much. I think it would be in Denver's pay range, and I think the slot is their biggest need. They don't need a receiver one with Cortland Sutton already over there. They don't need that huge, bigger receiver.
I think
over there.
I think Denver's betting odds too. Last time I checked, I think they have the best odds to get
the betting odds for Davante Adams and every other receiver too. I mean, it's.
Do you? I thought Davante was Green Bay.
Davante had best, at least what I was saying on Twitter before. He had best betting odds for Denver. So I don't know.
All right, interesting. I'm gonna add one more thing about Cooper Kupp.
Go ahead, Ham.
My sneaky team for Cooper Kupp: Red Kingdom Chiefs. Sneaky team.
Dude, this guy's got Cooper Kupp and Ronnie Stanley with negative $18 million in cap.
Just saying.
I think there's a little bit of issues there with him being a slot. They have a lot. I mean, I just don't think they need another slot, and I don't think they would be willing to pay for another slot like that.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? They have Xavier Worthy, do they? They don't need
to play slot.
He's a slot.
Yes, I think he 100% can play slot.
X was playing slot this year a lot, yeah.
Yeah,
you can move him outside.
You could, but I don't think I don't mind him. I know it's a sleeper pick, so it's not like obviously you're not saying he will end up there, but I don't know about that one. It's a little bit. And another thing, really quickly, I think Cooper Kupp. I mean, I don't know if it's injuries or what, but I feel like he gets so highly spoken of, and the production on the field isn't what you want for the level he is spoken of. Ever since he had his breakout season, he hasn't reached more than 850 receiving yards. He's had 75 receptions, 59 receptions, 67. I think that
has nothing to do with production on the field. Strictly, can he stay on the field?
I agree.
And if he goes to Denver, Denver had almost no injuries this past year, and no guys really ended up on IR. I think there's a really good strength and conditioning team. If he ends up at another team like that, or like Denver, or another team that doesn't have a lot of injuries, I think you see the Cooper Kupp that we saw when he was a Triple Crown candidate.
I agree, but we said this here's my thing. We said the same thing about Michael Thomas, is that the injuries, like he can't stay healthy, things like that. What is different with Cooper Kupp? And I know like that.
Switching teams. Michael Thomas never switched teams. He stayed in New Orleans, and he stayed in that cap hell. And
he stayed loyal.
That team, and Hammer and I know it, that team should be in hell, and they were in hell. So, you can't – it's hard to compare Michael Thomas because he lost his Hall of Fame quarterback too.
That is true.
Thomas a bomb. What's about Cooper Kupp, a Super Bowl MVP? Come on.
Yeah, a guy that hasn't done – he's only broken 1,000 yards 2 times in his career. That's the star that we're talking about, 1,000 yards in his career twice.
Did Michael Thomas get Offensive Player of the Year?
He was right? An All-Pro, but
I don't think
he did. He was, dude. He had the Triple Crown. Hammer. He broke the record for receptions in a year.
Yeah, I know. Did he win it?
Yes, he won Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah.
Okay, you weren't sure at first, so take it easy there.
No, because I thought you were saying something. Like I was like,
yeah, I don't know if you won it. I don't know if you won it. I know Cooper Kupp won it, and he got a ring and a Super Bowl MVP. Yeah,
but like Michael Thomas didn't get to the Super Bowl. He was kind of robbed that opportunity. But anyways, I think Michael Thomas, we look at it. I'm not arguing that. Should have never came to it, but I'm not arguing it. Michael Thomas, 4 seasons straight, 1,000 yards, over 100 catches for 3 of those. Cooper Kupp's only done it in really 2 seasons where he's gotten past 1,000 yards, and only 1 season above 100 catches. So I don't know. I'm just saying that the discussion is a little bit different with Cooper Kupp, and I'm not sure as to why, because his injuries are a big deal. They're a big issue.
Hater, Cooper Kupp hater. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay. Squashing this bug real quick. Ty, before we start, says this guy might be racist towards the white guys, and it's like going on this podcast.
He's not like them. I don't know.
The number of times I've brought up exciting whites in this podcast.
DBs only.
I am offended. DBs only. White DBs represent. Anyways, moving on from these guys, we got Trey Hendrickson, another exciting white on the defensive side of the ball. D end from the Cincinnati Bengals. Random news broke today that he's seeking a trade. They're granting him the ability to seek a trade. This is a guy that, he's their only piece on defense that is a bright spot for the Bengals. So this really doesn't make any sense to me. Ty, what are your thoughts on him? Where do you see him landing?
Yeah, it was the writing was on the wall, right? If they're willing to pay T, they just can't pay Trey for another pay increase that he's due, right? He's led the league in sacks, and he's been top 5 in the past couple of years. So he's a dog. I have him ending up with the Commanders. I think the Commanders probably miss out on some of these other bigger pass rushers. I think they're willing to pay the money. It just seems like he's got Commander written all over him. He kind of talked about how Dan Quinn likes some of these veteran guys, right? Trey's been around. He's a vet. He's 29, 30 years old. So, the production's there too. They need an elite pass rusher. They had the money to pay him. I think they fork up a pick or 2 for Trey. And, I think he wreaks havoc in Washington.
Hammer, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. They got the money to do it. The quarterback's still on the rookie deal. You saw it with the move a little earlier with, getting Deebo Samuel. They're going to go all in for these next, 2-3 years before we have to sign Daniels to that big extension. So go get the, NFL sacks leader? Go get him.
Yeah. I have him going to Washington as well. Another team I could possibly see him going to would be like the Chargers, losing some of their edges. If Khalil Mack leaves, especially, I think they might try to make a splash at that edge position. So I could see him possibly going there. Next, we got Myles Garrett, another defensive end that's going to be talked about a lot this off season with the trade market. I see him going to more of a contender type of team, and like as a veteran kind of guy. They're not looking. They're both vets, but I'm saying like Myles Garrett, I see going to a higher level contender than the Commanders. Hammer, what do you think? Where do you see him landing?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I could see him maybe sticking in Cleveland. Like, I don't really know if they're going to trade him. But if they do, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say Philly. I'm going to say Howie just goes all in and gets another beast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it sucks to say, but yeah, I'm going to say Philly.
I agree. When I kind of say a higher level of contender, that's what I mean. I see him going to Philly or even possibly Detroit as
Green
well.
Bay.
No, not Green Bay, but I think like Detroit, a team like that to pair across from Aiden Hutchinson would be a really good move. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I got them going to Detroit as well, right? I think they're in a position where they don't really need the draft picks because they've struck gold in the past couple of years in the draft, and then obviously with the trade with Matt Stafford, they got more draft picks to strike even more gold. So they're able to toss some picks out there for the next couple of years. They have the cap space to pay him. Their big weakness was in the pass rush this past year, especially without Aiden Hutchinson. With Hutchinson gone, they practically had no pass rush. I mean, he was their leading sack guy until like week 11, which is insane because he missed out on like 8 of those weeks. So yeah. I got them in Myles Garrett. I don't know if he'll actually get traded. I agree with Hammer. I feel like it's going to be tough for Cleveland to be willing to get rid of him, especially if they go quarterback, right? I don't know. I don't know if they'll actually get rid of him, but I think if they do, I think Detroit makes a lot of sense as a team that, could use another elite edge rusher.
You guys suck. Yeah. I don't know. But you know what? Like, let's say, yeah, you guys suck for picking Detroit. But let's say they go Abdul Carter, right? I don't think they do. I think they go QB. Let's say they go Abdul. Does that change it? Like, then they're a little bit more open to deal Myles. I don't know. I think it's so weird. I don't know.
I would think it would open the possibility a little bit more. But then, to me, if
don't you want him there to kind of mentor?
Exactly.
Like, even more
if you do go Abdul, it maybe gives him more reason to possibly want to stay to say that I was that guy's mentor if he ends up doing like really good things.
I don't think he cares, man. I think he wants to win. And I think when you think about this trade too, right, they want to get rid of him before the draft so they can have that pick on night one and take another guy, right? I think they could put themselves in a position to take an Abdul Carter and then a Jackson Dart if they wanted to, or they could put themselves in a position to take a Shadur Sanders and take a Shamar Stewart or Mykel Williams later on. So,
it makes a lot of sense if you make a move with Philly or Detroit, who's in the back half of the first round. You move back in and go get someone like Jackson Dart. Maybe if Sanders falls, because then you get that 5th-year option with the quarterback. So
exactly.
We'll see. Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully
it's a really crazy situation because the Browns really hold they have no advantage in trading him, and so I think all these teams. And they have no cards. If Myles Garrett says, I'm not playing for you if you don't trade me, then it's tough because you have to kind of trade him for a little bit less because other teams know that you don't have the ability to just keep him and kind of sit on nothing. Like you're going to trade him for less if you absolutely have to. So teams might wait it out, see what comes of that situation. Anyways, moving on from the general predictions, things like that, we're going to move on to team predictions. I'm going to hold you guys to a minute. I'm going to give a minute for each team to break down the needs real quick and a quick couple of guys that you think should be targets for your team. So Hammer, we're going to go with you first. The Green Bay Packers, you got a minute. What do you think happens there?
All right, so as you guys noticed, I didn't pick anyone to Green Bay. And all the guys who went through, I didn't go pick anyone to Green Bay. I said maybe DK. But top 3 needs in order: edge rusher, receiver 1, and a corner. At this free agency class, you're pretty loaded in corner. To me, if you're going to go spend money, though, go spend it on that pass rush. I think, that's the most valuable kind of need for us. And then receiver and then corner. So 2 guys who I really like, who make a lot of sense, fit the mold, young, highly athletic, and we think their best football is ahead of them. Paulson Adebo at corner and Dio Odebo, saying that last name probably wrong, but pass rusher from the Colts, kind of rotation guy. When he's in, he's showed a lot of flashes. Kind of reminds me a few years back with this Darius Smith, a young guy, rotation guy, showed a lot, signed him to a big deal, became a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. So those are my two guys. But I'd watch out for some of the bigger names like Mack, Murphy, and this and that. Sweat.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind him. Ty, what do you think? Give you a minute as well to chime in.
Yeah, obviously earlier, I mentioned possible Evan Engram, and I think two names that I would really watch, bigger names, are Devon Holland and Aaron Jones, especially if we cut PJ Locke. I think the safety position's a need, obviously running back. But I think three practical options that there's been a lot of rumors about and just would make a lot of sense in Denver. One, obviously, Juwan Johnson. We need a tight end. I think he's a more obvious option than Evan Engram. You can still draft one and pair him with a younger guy. And obviously the Sean Payne connection. Amari Cooper, rumors came out today that Denver could be interested in him, and he would make a lot of sense as a number 2 receiver alongside Cortland Sutton. And you have Mims and Troy Franklin, who will likely play that slot position for us. And then the other one, Jamian Sherwood. I think we really need a linebacker who can cover. He was ranked amongst one of the top linebackers in coverage grade this past year. He was also top 5 in tackles. I think he would make a lot of sense in that Vance Joseph defense alongside a guy like Drew Sanders. So those Juwan Johnson, Jamian Sherwood, and Mark Cooper are the 3 guys who I really think Denver will go after.
Yeah, I think both of you guys kind of solid lists for the Saints. I mean, I won't even need a minute here. I'll give you a very quick rundown. The Saints need everything, right? We don't need maybe 2 tackles. Our right and left tackles are pretty young and at least serviceable. Talifuaga is a little bit better, obviously. But everywhere else you need and center too. Eric McCoy is solidified in the center position and he's younger. Everywhere else you need younger and better talent. And I think the Saints know that, even though it doesn't really seem like it with them trying to still compete this upcoming season and go quote unquote all in again. But I think they just need positions everywhere. I think they need youth. So I think the draft is really big focal point. Free agency, not so much. And we'll see a lot of people walk, maybe re-sign Chase Young, and that's about it for the Saints. So that'll do it for this free agency episode. I want to hear some closing thoughts from you guys. What team? Okay, here, I'll ask, this will be the final question of the episode. What team do you think will improve the most this upcoming free agency in their playoff hopes for the next season?
Yeah, I think we're talking playoff hopes, right? We have to talk teams that did not make the playoffs in this past year. I think New England. I think New England's got the money to spend. I think if they improve in the trenches, Drake May is good enough to make things happen with the receivers that they have. The big deal last year was, right, the defense was trash and their offensive line was not good. So I think they make a lot of improvements through the draft and through free agency, and they cement themselves as a possible wild card contender.
I don't mind it. Him, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd go with the Patriots too, and my other team would be the Chargers. I think those are the 2 teams, as you saw in the graphic. They got the most cap space. They're going to be big spenders, and yeah, I think they're both going to improve big time. I'm
going to agree with both of you. I think the Patriots, man, I think if they go all in with Vrabel, I really do think they could improve with basically what we did see from Drake May. We didn't see a lot, right? Played only a few games. But if you can make a few splash plays and really develop this offseason, I think they could really cook something up over there, even in a tougher division. But they could move past the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins could see some regression this offseason. And if the Patriots really improve all of the positions that we talked about in free agency and in the draft as well, they could really see a really quick turnaround, similar to what the Commanders saw this past season.
I'll give you one sleeper, too. I think Carolina, they're a team that's been rumored to be aggressive. We saw how well Bryce Young played in that second half of the season. If they can hit some home runs in free agency in the draft, the NFC is a little bit weaker, especially that division. I think that they could be another team that really shoots up the boards and has a chance to make a playoff berth.
Yeah, I think they're out of the NFC South. I think they're the team that has the most, the highest ceiling for improvement, right? I mean, you look at the Falcons, they could improve a little bit with Michael Penix coming in, but they don't really have any free agency space or salary cap space for free agency. The Bucs are probably going to have the same kind of season as they did last year. I don't really see them improving or anything like that. The Saints have probably the lowest floor and a middle ceiling. I think we could win from 2 to 11 games based on Derek Carr's performance and health, because I think if the team stayed fully healthy last season, I think we probably win 10 games, maybe 11, because we had a weak schedule. I mean, that's real.
This guy.
I'm not even like that's. I think that's realistic. If they stayed fully healthy with the schedule they had a really weak schedule, and a lot of those games were very, very winnable, but we just had no health, and I think that kind of hurt a lot. But I think they still feel like they're contenders, which.
And I'll just throw in another team. I think the Packers, man. Hey, man, you get that star edge rusher, you get a receiver one. I think
the Packers and Denver are both in really good positions where they have their quarterback and they have a lot of good players around and they have money to spend. If both of them hit some home runs of free agency, I think they're both dangerous.
You can become real contenders overnight. I truly believe that. If you go get a Khalil Mack and a Davante Adams, even if the two old heads, I think that proves them big time.
Yeah, and Hammer. I mean, like we talk about it, like it's like not a big deal, but I mean, like the Packers were a legit team last year. I think the receiver thing really hurt them. They didn't have that.
What you want too, right? They played a terrible game and they still played Philly tough at Philly. Right in that wild card round.
They did get screwed on the first play of the game with that fumble. I'll say that.
I mean, he got popped. How about don't get popped, Keyshawn Nixon? Man, not pulling to the ball.
Well, I mean,
they're young. They're a young team. You get some veteran leadership. There's two top positioner needs, man. I think, why not?
Yeah, you could improve a lot. But I think, to be fair as well, he did get speared. And we talk about a lot about player safety and illegal hits in the NFL, things like that. He got 100% speared, illegal hit straight to the head, didn't get flagged, and then got even posted on all of the social medias of NFL. So it's a little bit like that whole player safety thing is a little bit all over the place for the NFL. And I just wanted to talk about that as well. Anyways, that'll do it for our free agency and trade prediction episode. This is a really long one, probably one of our longest episodes and last.
I feel like this is always one of our longest every year.
Yeah, every year this is usually pretty high up there, which it's a little bit more fun to talk about that. I mean, we got a lot of guys, a lot of different scenarios, things like that. The quarterbacks took a little bit of extra time, but anyways, that'll do it. Let us know what you guys think down below. Comment which guys you think will go to different places or who are your favorite signings or free agent targets for your teams as well. And we will see you guys next week. We'll return back to draft predictions or rankings. It'll be edges next week, which is going to be a fun group to break down. That's a really good class. And then we'll break down some free agency news and things like that towards the end of the episode as well. Anyways, you guys know where to check us out on social media at Jenks Island and anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll see you guys next week.